Okay, so this video is about permanent negative aggregate demand shock and how it can result in deflationary trap. And God is my witness, I hate drawing this graph. Okay, so trust me, you would like to have your Phillips curve relatively stiff, and you would like to start with, relatively high level of target level of inflation right now. So the story is like this. In period 0, aggregate demand decreases, but we have permanent shock, which means that we are going to stay on the same IS curve forever. So here we have initial RS. So basically, now we are on IS prime. So we shift from point A to point B, and for this level of output, the corresponding level of inflation, is negative. So here we have y0. Okay, so as you remember from Fisher equation, like real interest rate is equal to nominal interest rate plus expected level of inflation with some approximation. So if we assume that interest rate, okay, so from this you can express nominal interest rate, vice versa, minus, yes, real interest rate is equal to nominal interest rate minus inflation. So from this you can express nominal interest rate as real interest rate plus expected rate of inflation. So nominal interest rate has to be equal to 0 or higher than 0. Otherwise, it makes no sense, I believe. So even if it's equal to 0, then we have negative real interest rate, which is fine. However, nominal interest rate cannot be lower than 0. If you go to the bank and you are told that at the end of the year you will get minus 5% on your bank account, probably, you will just leave this bank immediately. So this is the idea. And if we want to have interest rate, a nominal interest rate to be equal or greater than 0, or to be at least equal to 0, then minimum value of real interest rate shall be negative value of inflation in the previous period. Because expected level of inflation is just level of inflation in the previous period because of adaptive inflationary expectations. You will get this idea in a second. So at this point, just keep in mind that minimum possible value of interest rate is the negative value of inflation in the previous period. Fine. So here we have inflation in period 0 and output in period 0, obviously. So we know that for the next period, Phillips curve shall be here. So it will correspond to the level of inflation in the previous period. So in, point A, then we have point B, and finally, hypothetically, we would like to have point C. Okay, I knew it's going to be a disaster. So hypothetically, we would like to have point C here. So central bank would like to be located at point C in period 1. Okay, we have permanent shock, sorry. So actually this interest rate shall be here. So this is R0 prime, like perfect solution for the central bank. However, as you remember, minimum value of R0 should be like minimum. the negative level of inflation, like minus inflation in the previous period. So it was equal to pi 0, so we should have minus pi 0. And since pi 0 was negative, then we should have it here, it shall be positive. So this is R0, which central bank, can actually afford. So for this R0, and again we analyze Noyes curve because there is a permanent change. So for this R0, central bank will be located not on the monetary rule as it would like to, but somewhere here. So here we have, point C, which, will actually happen. Because again, this point C is unachievable. So this will require negative real interest rate, and it's impossible because there was negative inflation in the previous period. So this is what central bank can actually afford. Here we end up at this point C, which is of course not on the monetary rule. So again, in period 0, let's just summarize what happens in this graph. What's going on this graph? So in period 0, we end up with pi 0, y 0, and r0. Period 0. So in period 1, like this will be inflation in period 1. We will end up with pi 1, level of output y1. By the way, still over the potential level of output. So P1 pi 1 is even lower than pi 0. So in comparison to Phillips curve in period 0 and Phillips curve in period 1, like in the next period, Phillips curve should shift, down. So PC2 will be located below PC1. Okay, so then it's not visible here, yeah, but you can get the idea. So actually then central bank, because we have bigger deflationary gap, central bank will have to charge even lower interest rate. And again, it will be impossible because for pi 1, this will be R1, central bank will be able to afford, because of this rule of non-negative nominal interest rates. So this is why actually we have a trap. So deflationary trap is not possible to overcome, with means of monetary policy. So let's say if government decides to intervene in period C, then, in order to have at least zero inflation in period C, then actually it shall be somewhere here. And obviously this is not about monetary policy anymore, like this point G. It's about intervention of the government. So this should be the amount of fiscal stimulus, just to get back, to escape deflationary trap. Because again, in this case, monetary policy is simply unable to do so. So, Phillips curve will shift down and down and down, requiring lower and lower interest rates, but central bank will have to charge higher and higher interest rates, and there is simply no escape. Okay, so this is done at this very sad note, and thank you for watching.